Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Friday, June 6, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. I keep telling y'all these MAGA nutcases are trying to do all they can to steal the vote from us. We'll show you what is happening in Tarrant County, Texas, where Fort Worth is, where they're trying to redraw the lines, and they wouldn't even have the folk who the county is paying for to redraw the lines testify in public. The Black County Commissioner there went off on them. Then we're going to show you what happened in Louisiana when they were talking about redistricting there, where this white Republican just got embarrassed by this black state rep. Oh, it's delicious. I can't wait to show that. Plus, Senator Cory Booker goes off on Ted Cruz, and we got that for you as well. Plus, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke launches the Creators Caucus. We were there covering the news conference. We got that for you as well. Plus, job data is out. We told y'all Trump was going to screw this thing up. We'll tell you what went down. Also, folks, we'll talk about the growing mental health crisis among African Americans, young and old. Lots for us to break down. And of course, those two idiots, Trump and Musk, are still going at it. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, mixed message with our first jobs report for the month of June. 139,000 jobs were added, but you also have unemployment claims increasing. Morgan DeBon, I'm sorry, I'll talk about Morgan DeBon. She would have she would have blabbed it. Morgan Harper, Director of Policy and Advocacy at the American Economic Liberties Project, joins us right now. Morgan, glad to have you. Yeah, look at Morgan. Morgan must got new cameras, some new lighting. Look at you. Look at you.
It's a summer glow.
Yes, a summer glow. It's an economic glow. So, all right, break down for us these numbers.
Not from these numbers, though. Not from these numbers. Well, so it's really interesting, Roland, because, the overall picture is kind of positive if you don't look into the details. And so we saw the stock market go up.
Oh, wait, I love that. It's positive if you don't look at the details.
Exactly, which is what people usually are doing, right? So if you just glance at the news, is like, okay, jobs were added, the stock market went up in response, but then we have to look under the hood of what's going on in these numbers. And that's where you start to see some of the vulnerabilities that we've been talking about over the last couple of months that could come from the federal policies that are coming from, the administration with the tariffs and all that. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so yes, technically and accurately, because we also don't have any reason yet to believe that the data is inaccurate, but that's something to continue to watch. Over 130,000 jobs were created. The unemployment rate stayed pretty steady, but we are seeing job losses in some of the sectors that kind of matter, especially if we're trying to, bring back American manufacturing. Manufacturing jobs went down, retail jobs went down. These are two industries that are impacted by trade quite directly. And then the average overall number of jobs that are being created this year is among the lowest average in over a decade. So the trends are not looking good. And, in addition to labor participation falling, so a lot of people are just leaving the workforce. And then also the numbers, like, what are they doing? Some of the surveys are showing a lot of people are going back to school. That's usually a sign too. And on the ground, people are not optimistic that they're going to be able to get a job. It's like, let me just get out of this altogether and take a little bit of a break from the labor market.
Got the right-wing Trump people like, well, this is Biden's economy. Nah, this is Trump's economy.
Yeah, I mean, Of course, that's going to be a political talking point. But when we see things like, that we had talked about last month, there was a bump in the number of jobs in the transportation and warehouse sectors, for example. That seemed, and that's completely gone away. Why would that change one month to another? That seems pretty likely that there were businesses that were in response to the tariffs or the threat of tariffs were trying to stock up on a lot of their materials so before they would have to pay any increase in tariffs. And now they've done that, and they don't have to do that anymore. So there's no more jobs coming from that. And so, yes, I mean, a lot of times with these numbers, I think people will try to blame, again, for political reasons, blame the other side or whatever. But this is data. This is data that we see every month, and the data is showing signs. And a lot of, different types of folks agree that the labor market is likely slowing down. Is it slowing down and we're rushing into a recession tomorrow? No. I mean, overall, more jobs are being created, but these are not positive signs of a robust economy that's seeing record growth by any means. And especially, again, I do want to emphasize this point on manufacturing, job losses. And so if a lot of the point of the tariffs and the trade policy is to rebuild American manufacturing, what we haven't seen from the administration is any plan to actually invest in doing that. And so what we're likely to continue to see are negative impacts that come to the economy as a result of some of this uncertainty or just an increase in costs for businesses.
Well, I got a kick. It's always hilarious to look at the right-wingers on Fox because they'll try to spin anything. And it was Stuart Varney, he had an analyst on, and to your point right there about those manufacturing jobs, he was perplexed. Watch this.
Now, 8,000 manufacturing jobs were lost in May. That's not what you wanted to see.
Well, we're certainly holding steady, and under the Trump administration, manufacturing jobs are still up over what the last administration under Biden had. The focus of my America at Work tour is to increase those manufacturing jobs, and we'll continue to stay laser focused on that as the president continues to double down on how important this is to the American economy.
But how come we're losing 8,000 manufacturing jobs in May when there's a big push to bring manufacturing jobs back to America? How come we're losing those jobs?
Well, we're certainly holding steady. And as we increase construction jobs, as we increase healthcare jobs, and again, that focus on building those manufacturing plants, it will take some time. The president has done a wonderful job in negotiating the level playing field. As far as the tariff discussions have gone, but those onshoring of those jobs, we're seeing tens of trillions of dollars being reinvested here in the United States. And I'll continue to focus on that skilled workforce as those manufacturing jobs continue to grow.
Morgan, you were cracking up laughing. You can't be holding steady if you're losing.
Well, and this is why we have to pay attention to a little bit of the details, because she's trying to get people to pay attention to the top line number. Are jobs being created? Yes, 139,000 of them. But his question was about, are they being created in the sector that you all tell us we're supposed to be seeing growth in, which is manufacturing? And the answer to that is just, it's not controversial. It's just no. The data from this month shows that 8,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost over the last month. Where are the jobs being created? The jobs are being created in healthcare. What drives healthcare jobs being created? I mean, we're all hypothesizing a bit here, but we have an aging population. As people age, they tend to need more medical care. So it makes sense that that would require more jobs. But you know what that isn't? A long-term growth strategy for a country. If you have your job creation coming solely from, or predominantly, I shouldn't say solely, but predominantly coming from healthcare jobs, that's not a future-looking economy. That's not rebuilding America. And so it's just kind of funny because, they're going to continue to try to focus on the top-line numbers, and we, the American people, have to continue to focus on the truth and the data, and you just got to go one layer below that to really get the full picture.
But people also need to understand, and people who don't own businesses, let me rephrase that. Whether you own a business or you work for one, you need to understand why uncertainty is an issue. Because businesses that are uncertain, meaning corporate leaders or owners who are uncertain about what's happening economically, that means if you're an employee, you might be without a job. I mean, I remember I was having a conversation with a former colleague of mine at TV One, and we were talking about, this was back in 2020, and I was talking about, we did a profit in 2020. That was a presidential election year. And we were having a conversation, and she said, are you going to give your employees bonuses? I said, no. She's like, why not? I said, okay, let me walk you through this. I said, this is what the profit was. I said, when you have a very good year, you're going to pay taxes. I said, unfortunately, like these corporations, small businesses, we can't just run money offshore and hide money in Ireland, and make billions and pay no taxes. I said, so now, here's the issue that I have to deal with. I'm going to have to pay taxes, which means that money is coming out of what that profit is. I said, I also need to have enough money to cover all of my expenses for a minimum of 4 months. I said, just in case the advertising market drops out. I said, so I can't go, oh, well, we did this per month in 2020, so therefore, this is how we're going to do in 2021. It's not how this works. And so that's what you're doing. I was talking to a sister, and she's a sexologist, and she has a sex institute, and she sells products. And she said to me, she said, man, my business has been greatly impacted. She said, because FedEx won't even deliver my products unless I give them a $25,000 check. She said, so here's a customer that buys something that last month, 3 months ago, that product cost $54 a bottle. Now that same product is $60 or $65, $70. And she is not bringing in inventory because she has to pay for the inventory up front because of the tariffs. And so the notion of uncertainty, that's what we're looking at. Companies are like, yo, we don't know what's going to go down. So, hey, we ain't spending, we not building, we ain't developing, not going to be any raises, we're not hiring, we're freezing bonuses because you don't know if you're going to look up and you're paying 20, 30, 40% more because this fool's tariffs and you know what side of the bed he's going to wake up on any given day.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Roland. And it's kind of like what you describe as the best case scenario. If you're a large company, you have the inventory to kind of ride the wave a little bit. You can float a little bit, see how this all goes. At a best case scenario, you just pause. But the situation you're describing with a small business owner or yourself, you don't have that same flexibility. And so this can really be, the kiss of death to a lot of small business owners. So the impacts from this are far-reaching, from the uncertainty in the federal policymaking, far-reaching. And again, it's just we got to be monitoring this every day. It's good or better that there was a decision made to not do a really unstrategic across-the-board tariff operation, right? And some courts now are starting to push back, but the overall environment is still extremely uncertain. And especially the smaller of a business you are, the more independent, the more vulnerable you're going to be to that uncertainty.
I want people to really understand that, and I get it. I get employees that are frustrated. But employees need to understand, from a business owner standpoint, the business owner is the last person who's going to be standing. And everybody else that works for a company, or when you say, well, we need this, we need that. I've literally had to tell people, I need you to, who've been complaining, people who are in the media space. And they've been like, man, I'm building this, but man, all these expenses are killing me. I said, you do know that everybody around you sees you as an ATM machine. I said, you are the ATM machine. You're paying salaries, you're paying for space, you're paying for equipment. I said, you are the ATM machine. Your job is to manage expenses because you have to look at that bottom line. And with this fool here, Trump, it's so uncertain. He wakes up, tariffs. We're going to lower them. They're going to go up. Then no. You don't know what country's going to hit. You have no idea. And so the smartest business thing is like, you know what? I'm just going to sit pat and just wait. and hope this thing shakes out in 3 to 6 months.
Exactly. And yeah, and if you can. And so
yep,
and
if you can.
Exactly. I think it's a charge for all of us to really step up and support our small businesses. We have the ability, I mean, you talk about that a lot, Roland, have the ability to influence the economy with our dollars directly. And this is a time where we really do need to do what we can to make sure that we're supporting each other because, yeah, a lot of our folks are not going to be able to withstand this level of uncertainty that the administration's inflicting.
All right, then. Morgan, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you.
All right, got to go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. An hour of living history with Dr. Richard Mariba Kelsey, thinker, builder, author, and one of the most important and impactful elders in the African American community. He reflects on his full and rich life and shares his incomparable wisdom about our past, present, and future.
African genius is saying that my uncle was a genius, my brother was a genius, my neighbor was a genius. I think we ought to drill that in ourselves and move ahead rather than believing that I got it.
That's next on the Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
We are here talking about the unfortunate case of 30-year-old Adriana Smith, who was diagnosed and pronounced as brain dead at 9 weeks pregnant and is being kept alive by the state to carry this pregnancy out to full term without any input from her family. It's a really harrowing example of the lack of bodily autonomy we have in a post-war world, and we're gonna dream bigger. Join us on The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Cyrus, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood Show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood Show and the Roland Martin Show? Well, whatever show it's going to be, it's going to be good.
All right, folks, let's talk about all of this with our panel. And just understand, we just talked about those job numbers. The black unemployment rate remains high at 6.2%, almost double that of white workers. Black men unemployment rate dropped to 5.2%. Black women lost more than 100,000 jobs and unemployment rose to 6.1%. Joining us right now is Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi, Tyler McMillan, social justice leader and movement strategist, and also Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show out of Detroit. Tyler, I'll start with you. It's just hilarious to listen to these people who go, there's Biden's economy. So it's like, really, so good stuff, it's yours, bad stuff, it's his. Nah, Republicans have to accept the reality that this is now June. You've been there 4 months. It's all on Trump and the Republican Party.
Absolutely, and I think it says that a steady jobs report doesn't mean that our communities are safe and in a good space. There, as said, young black workers in places like Columbus and Cleveland just don't need jobs. They need living wages. They need access to health care, and there must be an investment there. And so I think we're seeing a lot of corporate consolidations. And so just because the numbers are showing does not mean that black folks are out of the red.
And Matt, when I try to explain to people about uncertainty, maybe a perfect example, 2 months ago, talking to Carol, our producer, and was like, well, how many interns are we going to have? I don't know. Were we going to have 2, 3? I chose to go with 5. But again, you make those decisions because you don't know where you're going to be economically in the next 3 to 6 months because of the chaos agent that sits in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And, I'm not the person who owns this law firm, but my managing partner surely has to consider a number of things when he's forecasting, what the firm's going to do for the next couple months, or in the year. But it's interesting you talk about chaos agents because there was a story in Axios this past week talking about the CEO of Anthropic and which is an AI company, and talking about how AI is going to be knocking out the bottom rungs of the ladders in terms of entry-level jobs in law on Wall Street and across a number of sectors. And what I was hoping to ask Morgan is really what she thinks that means it's going to look like for the next several months of jobs forecast. I know they were talking a couple years out with that, but that's what really concerns me as a chaos agent, because all of these big companies are planning layoffs and are laying people off because of the advent of technology. And I'm wondering what that cascade effect is going to look like for future jobs reports, and what people can be doing to insulate themselves now beyond obviously learning AI and becoming certified in various AI topics. But that's a chaos agent that I think will be unwieldy, beyond the government's control, but also requires, smart policy from the government to make sure that they are finding a way to regulate that to ensure that, jobs stay stable. So I'm interested in seeing what that's going to look like, to your point about uncertainty.
I'm going to try to pull this up. I saw a post where Robert Smith, who of course is the richest African American in the world, in the country, Robert Smith was at a conference and he predicted. Here we go. Okay, this is. Let me hold up. This is a Bloomberg article. It's behind a paywall, but I can get around that. So give me a second to go to another website to get around that paywall, so I can show y'all this article, which I thought was whoa. I mean, first of all, the article was scary as hell. So here we go. So Robert Smith said, Vista CEO says AI to force 60% of super return crowd to seek work. He says, we think that next year, 40% of the people at this conference will have an AI agent, and the remaining 60% will be looking for work. That's a problem. So what you're talking about is something that people have to recognize, Michael. What Bat said is real. I mean, we're talking a major disruption. We're talking researching jobs. We're talking legal assistants, paralegals. We're talking all sorts of things. It's totally changing. And if people don't understand, if we talk about automation, this is the exact same thing, how automation completely changed this country, going from an industrial nation to automation. When you look at the jobs that you no longer have bank teller jobs, you no longer have supermarket checkout jobs. Those were jobs that a lot of middle-class people had, people who didn't go to college, who had high school diplomas. It's now going to get worse, and as you continue, people need to really come to grips with what the future is going to hold for this country.
Absolutely, Roland. So this is something that has been predicted, dealing with AI, artificial intelligence, not A1, as Secretary of Education Linda McMahon called it, A1. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to eliminate jobs. We saw also when the actors had their strike last year, that was one of the issues that they wanted to get assurances on, that various jobs, et cetera, would not be eliminated because of artificial intelligence. But at the same time that's taking place, there has to be increased regulation on artificial intelligence, which is one of the reasons why Elon Musk invested $290 million to get Donald Trump elected, to get more favorable regulation over artificial intelligence. And you have to have lawmakers who have knowledge of how artificial intelligence works. One of the criticism of some of the lawmakers in the House of Representatives, but also in the U.S. Senate, is that many of them, and I'm not trying to age discriminate, but many of them are so old that they don't understand how the technology works. So if you don't understand how the technology works, you're not going to really understand how it needs to be regulated.
No, and it's no clue. First of all, to your point there, the Hollywood Reporter did this story last year. So Tyler Perry was at a conference, and Tyler was in the middle of, he was starting an $800 million expansion of his Atlanta studio. When he saw OpenAI's Sora, he said, "Oh my God." And then all of a sudden, he saw their text-to-video model, and he says, this is what he said, being told that it can do all of these things is one thing, but actually seeing the capabilities, it was mind-blowing. Noting that his productions might not have to travel to locations or build sets with the assistance of the technology. I mean, dude, it's like people don't understand it. I saw there was a guy he posted. So Google dropped this AI tech last week, and I'm going to show you this here, an AI and a pharmaceutical commercial. And so this guy talked about how he would be hired to do a pharmaceutical commercial. He said it would cost $500,000 to do this commercial. He said that when he spent, I think he said he spent $500 with this Google tool that created a commercial that you swore was produced for $500,000. In fact, this is like what I'm about to show y'all. This was just a straight up. This was a straight up AI commercial. These are not actors. This was created with a Google tool, and I think it cost $500. I want y'all to look at it and listen to it, and I want you to, while you're doing it, to think about how many people would work on a production like this. Shooting, lighting, editing, graphics, actors, you name it. That was all done with an AI tool. Watch this.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Puppermin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling.
My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
Puppermine. For when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
Oh, boy.
Bruh.
Yes.
That was all AI.
Right. Yep.
I need people watching and listening to understand the number that's no production staff. That's no script writers, no shooters, no editors, no grip, no lighting people, no cinematographer, no location people, no actors, no nothing. That's just one example.
Yes. Yep. And this is something that a lot of people have seen coming. And if you go back, you had Yvette Nicole Brown, actress Yvette Nicole Brown, on the show last year, I think at least twice during the actor strike. And these are things that they were talking about. These are things they're talking about eliminating tons of jobs in the industry, not just people in front of the camera, not just actors and actresses. And remember that old slogan, last hired, first fired, as well. That applies to Black people, but also behind the camera. But then you look at contracts to provide food catering to the sets when they have productions, when they're shooting movies, when they're shooting commercials. You look at transportation services to and from the production set, things of this nature. So we're talking about something totally revolutionizing the industry and how work is done. And we're going to pay the cost of this. And at the same time, when you look at these jobs numbers, 22,000 federal jobs were lost in May, and 59,000 federal jobs have been lost since January of 2025. African Americans make up 19% of the 2.3 million federal employees. It's less than 2.3 million federal employees now. Okay, so we really have to be paying attention and preparing for this. All this is taking place, and we saw the labor market lost 652,000 people in May, and the piece from the Washington Post talks about how more than 1 million foreign-born workers have exited the workforce since March of 2025. So I thought that when you got rid of immigrants and undocumented immigrants, I thought all these people were going to take their jobs. What happened to that, Roland? What happened to they're taking white people's jobs? Why aren't white people filling these 1 million jobs that these immigrants had?
The reason we laid this out is because we really need people to understand how this is going to continue. Tyler, we're going to be seeing this, and I just need people to prepare for what this future looks like, because it's real. This is happening as we speak right now. Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the question that I'm asking is, like, what's next? Like, if we're already seeing this level of effect where, as you said, it's AI and it's taking away from the hundreds of jobs that will put food on people's table, like, what's next? How are people supposed to provide for their families? How do people support and pay bills if tools like this is overtaking real jobs? And so it's really the question of what's next and how are we going to regulate. I think it's a double-edged sword to a point. We see the benefits of AI, but at the same time, there must be some leverage on it of what goes too far and how do we still be connected to the human nature of the humanity of it, and keeping folks plugged in and active, because folks will get comfortable and just go and sit on the couch. And we need folks to get up and actually know what labor is, to know what work is. So,
well, I think what we have to understand, is this is going to benefit the employer. Let me be just as frank as possible. And I need people to understand what I'm talking about here, Michael. And that is, the employer is going to be benefiting, the person who owns the company. This is going to mean that more money in their pockets. They're going to have to hire fewer people. People need to understand this reality.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to eliminate a lot of people who are employees. And I'm all for people starting businesses, and because I know people are going to start selling entrepreneurship classes on how to start a business in the entertainment industry in the age of AI and things like that, because that's a stream of income for them, teaching the classes. I'm all for starting a business, but what it's not going to be the same as the employment opportunities that people were getting, as well as the residuals that they're getting on the commercials and on TV shows, things of this nature. So this is one of the reasons why there has to be more regulation when it comes to artificial intelligence, because you're going to see more unemployment numbers. The unemployment numbers are going to get worse. When you read this report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we see soft spots in the unemployment numbers. And just to compare this to November 2024, there were 212 jobs created in November 2024. When Biden was still in office, and the unemployment rate was 4.1% compared to 139,000 jobs created in May 2025, and Donald Trump is trying to take a victory lap.
Yeah. Well, I just want people to understand how technology is actually going to be changing the game. When we come back, folks, we're going to talk about that, where there's a content creators caucus that's starting in the U.S. House We're going to tell you about that next, right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Brina Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do the work that we do all across the country. If you want to contribute to our Brina Funk fan club, our goal is to get 20,000 people contributing on average $50 each a year. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Your support goes to support this show, as well as all the other shows on the Black Star Network, plus the new shows that we're working on launching. Can't wait to tell you about those. If you want to contribute, do so via Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. You can go to blackstarnetwork.com to catch it as well. Make your check and money order payable to the Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
This week on A Balanced Life, we're talking about single father parenting. You've got it. Faith, family, and fatherhood. What does it mean to be a single parent father, spending time with your kid, whether it's a son or a daughter? Whether you ask for it, plan for it, or by tragedy or accident, you step into the role.
I didn't take it as a woe is me moment or I was like, what am I going to do? It's like, matter of fact, I looked at it, I rolled up my sleeves and I said, hey, whatever it takes.
That's all this week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
We are here talking about the unfortunate case of 30-year-old Adriana Smith, who was diagnosed and pronounced as brain dead at 9 weeks pregnant and is being kept alive by the state to carry this pregnancy out to full term without any input from her family. It's a really harrowing example of the lack of bodily autonomy we have in a post-Roe world, and we're going to dream bigger. Join us on the other side of change, only on the Black Star Network.
This is Tamala Mann.
And this is David Mann. And you're watching Roland Martin
Unfiltered.
Yesterday, two members of Congress announced the creation of the the Congressional Creators Caucus that looks at not emerging, but is really now a $70 billion industry of when it comes to content creators. And so that's, folks who are
After the proposal.
There are people who are on TikTok or on Instagram, people who are, who are creating content. Well, guess what? These are also business owners. These are entrepreneurs. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who chairs the Congressional Black Caucus, and Texas Congresswoman Beth Van Dunn hosted the news conference launching the bipartisan Congressional Creators Caucus, the first of its kind. Its aim is to bring the voices of online content creators into the public policy arena, helping educate lawmakers on the unique challenges these digital entrepreneurs face as the economy, this new wave of startups. Now, we spoke to several creators in attendance, in addition to talking to both members of Congress. Here is Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Okay, all right, we don't have Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, but I do, okay? All right, here's my conversation yesterday, y'all, with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. So, how did this originate? How did the idea start?
Well, I know, so in our office, we have been having a lot of conversations about what happened when the whole idea of the TikTok ban came up. And we heard from a number, because I'm on the Committee of Jurisdiction, Energy and Commerce, that there was so many folks who, lamented that their businesses would be stifled should this occur when it was about to occur. And it was very clear to us in my office and throughout the work that I've been doing that this ecosystem of content creators weren't being heard, that there was no place for them to engage with members of Congress, policymakers, and this was an emerging industry that needed to be a part of sort of the overall dynamics when we're talking about entrepreneurship, when we're talking about small business, and we're talking about emerging industries. And so between myself and my staff, we said, we got to get this caucus going. I since heard from a number of folks, particularly in the legal community, who help people with ownership, help people with branding and things of that nature, who thought that this was an important thing for us to do, encouraged us to do it. My staff then looked at the fact that we wanted to do something bipartisan and who we could get among our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Best stepped out, and hence here we are today.
Same thing happened when Cash App made some changes. Like I had to deal with them on that, where they changed their rules as to what type of companies could have an account. And so because the type of incorporation we are, they shut down all the accounts.
Wow.
And that even caught a lot of people by surprise. And so like we had to literally switch how people could contribute to our show. That impacted a lot of nonprofits as well. And so that was...
We can't have that type of disruptive behavior taking place.
And it was immediate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were in a powerful position and they felt that was something that they could do. There was nothing that governed how they would treat our online platforms and our growing and emerging businesses. We want to be able to bring them to the table and talk about business practices that help facilitate the growth. What are the obstacles that they may see, or what was the risk or vulnerability that they were trying to avoid? Or was it based on some sort of discriminatory practice? These are the things we want to get to the bottom of.
Well, and one of the things that I think also Congress be looking at, when you look at the federal government spends $1 billion a year on advertising, most of that, nearly all of that goes to linear, broadcast, traditional print, and digital is often frozen out of those ad dollars, especially black-owned media.
And that's why it's important that this is a bipartisan effort. Because at the end of the day, all of us need to be conscious of the fact of the sort of evolving growth and development of the online platform ecosystem and the fact that there's a major shift that is taking place. And so how we advertise what we do as a federal government has to be reflective of that shift as well.
All right. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks a bunch.
Brother. Yep. Good to see you.
Likewise.
California. My channel, you can just look up my name, Isaac Rochelle, on really any platform. But for me, just having creators have representation to some degree, starting to have the conversations around everything that affects creators, legitimizing creators and what they're doing, and recognizing it as a true business. There's nothing more important, so I'm excited to just be a part of the conversation and help in any way that I can.
And what type of content do you make?
Lifestyle, sports, workout, kind of everything. My wife does the same thing in her own regard. So that's my content. Check me out. But again, nothing's more important than having a voice. So super excited about this.
The Creator Caucus is incredibly important because creators are such an increasingly important part of the ecosystem, both the economy in the U.S. They are, there's I think 1.5 million jobs estimated in the creator economy. I think the YouTube ecosystem alone has something like 500,000 full-time equivalent jobs or thereabout in the U.S. alone. So as this becomes a bigger part of the economy, a bigger part of the media landscape, we thought it was really important for creators to have a direct pathway to talk with members of Congress, to understand the issues that impact them. They're such great advocates for their perspective, and they represent such a diverse constituency of interests across the country by different parts of the country where they work in, the different types of content they produce. It's really just hard to understand unless you're talking with them directly. So we're really excited that members are interested in learning more about the caucus and working directly with creators.
Thank you. And then just your name and title for me, please.
Yes, I'm Evan Engstrom. I am the public policy team at YouTube, Senior Manager of Creator Policy.
We need more legislation around content creators and protecting our content. Right now, the only thing that really exists are things like trademarks and things like that. But when you see your content sometimes used by other people without your consent, it really dilutes the importance of what we do. So having this as a step forward creates that legislation and that foundational guidelines for us to move forward in the right direction.
This caucus matters to me because it's a way for us to communicate with and collaborate with lawmakers on getting policies in place that help creators. Because the creator economy is booming. Many
That's a 91. I'm just saying. I'm like, goodness. How did this originate? I mean, obviously there are multiple caucuses, and so what was the tipping point where you and Congressman Clark got together to say this needs to happen?
Well, I think we have seen in recent years, a lot of the ideas that are coming through conference, and a lot of the ideas that are coming through Congress about ways of being able to legislate this industry. And when you talk to different members, we all have different ideas of what that industry defines. Who's a part of it, how much it is, where it is, and what has to be regulated. And I think having a caucus, inviting people from the industry who do this for a living, to let us know the laws of unintended consequences. If you pass this kind of legislation, by the way, you may not have known this. You may not have thought about this, but this is how it can affect us. We need to hear from those people directly. And this is a great opportunity, I think, to just kind of open it up, to have members be able to have access to that, and to be able to have a platform where they can discuss it. I think it will be a really good thing for both content creators and for our communities.
Well, it's a perfect example with you on this here. Again, I don't think a lot of people really grasp. We're talking billions and billions of dollars. We're talking individuals who are now on these social platforms. They're really individual companies. So now you're talking about folks with LLCs, Incs, whatever. They may not have 15 employees like I do and others, but they actually have people. And I think we have to understand what is at play. What is at play here? And when you talk about having a voice, as we were just talking about earlier, these members of Congress, they ain't got no clue. A lot of them have no clue about technology. They still having pen and pad off the record conversations, but we're now living in a digital world. And so they do have to keep up with how the economy is changing and how voters are changing.
Was that for me, Roland?
Tyler?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I would first start off by saying I'm gonna go with what Issa Rae said. I root for everybody black, and we know that black people are magical. Black people drive culture. Yet we get the least when it comes to equity and protection in the digital economy. So as we talk about creators, I think this is a great opportunity for creators to really secure their rights, whether it's through their IPs, to have accountability from the platforms that they're making millions and billions of dollars for, and it brings fairness to these creators. And so I think this caucus is a step in the right direction when it comes to justice in the content economy. And I'm excited to see how we can make this monetization of this content creator economy to make it more equitable, especially for Black and brown creators.
We use that word monetization, but what that really means, this is business, Matt. It's business. And content creators also need to understand that they're going to be dealing with legal issues, tax issues, and you better want somebody in Congress who you can talk to about these issues.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But I kind of want to take the baton and run with it from Tyler, because I think he touched on two things that I immediately thought. The first thing that I thought, and I don't want to be the resident pessimist here, but I'm happy to bring this up. I like that they are considering this and looking at this as something that they need to regulate. What worries me, however, is if you have a DOJ that's not going to prosecute antitrust against Mark Zuckerberg and the likes of Zuckerberg, then you're going to have such a great imbalance that you already have between the online platforms and the content creators. And I think that's one of the things that has to be addressed first, because to Tyler's point, that's immediately what I thought. I mean, it's great that the content creators are going to have greater protection potentially, but if you're making your stuff on websites and disseminating it through websites, which they all are, unless there's greater equity for what you can earn and greater fairness and greater bargaining power, then you're going to have, I think, some resultant antitrust issues, number one. And then number two, I think you have a question of really who is a content creator, because arguably anybody who's using social media is a content creator. And I think kind of similar to the NIL question, you're going to have a question of, who really is going to get the bigger part of the pie, who's going to get the protection? Are they going to set thresholds on content creators who are doing business above a certain level? And that's not to say they shouldn't do something, but I think there are some kind of threshold questions that have to be answered. And the biggest thing about all of this is politically, they have to be able to have some teeth in any regulations that they put forth. And that would be my biggest concern, because if you look at Meta and Jeff Bezos and all the people who are surrounding President Trump at the inauguration, many of those people are people who would be directly affected from a financial standpoint by these kinds of regulations, and accordingly are surely going to fight them tooth and nail. So I'm hoping that if Congress really kind of runs further with this ball, with this caucus, that they actually put something in that has some teeth so that content creators are really able to leverage their content and not kind of more in name than truly in substance.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland. Well, first of all, where are all the people, Roland, who said we don't need to vote, we just need to do economic empowerment and build businesses like the Asians? Here you see how laws and policies impact business. These content creators have businesses, even if they don't have any employees. This is how it impacts business. And when we look at the piece from TechCrunch, it talks about how there are over 390,000 full-time equivalent jobs in 2022. And Goldman Sachs estimates that the creator economy could be worth $500 billion by 2027. But it goes on to talk about the U.S. government doesn't have much regulatory oversight or understanding of the creator economy as it stands, leaving creator businesses in a bind, which means you got to have elected officials that know how this stuff works. If they're not to discriminate against age, but if they're so old or so out of touch that they don't even understand the technology, they can't craft policy that's even beneficial to the content creators, especially the African American content creators. So this is very much needed. I'm a content creator as well. Eventually, I want to do it full time. So this is something I would definitely be following.
We'll see what happens next, but again, it's something that people need to understand. It's business. And to your point, which I talked about the other day, is all these people who are like, man, we don't need no government. We don't need no government. We can do for self. Trust me, I keep telling y'all, government has a hand in everything, and you damn sure when you get in trouble. Like, for instance, when the IRS changed their rules, when they were going to say that if you got any money on a Cash App over, I think it was like $600 had to be reported, man, folks lost their minds. That's government. The IRS is government. But, we got some folks who don't quite understand that. All right, y'all. It's an idiot that's in the White House, we know that, but he hires idiots. And one of the biggest ones is Carolyn Levitt, big-time liar, White House spokesman. And boy, she just straight lied from the podium regarding some reporting of the BBC. And they did a brutal fact check of this fool. And I saw it and I said, we gotta roll it.
On Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt was asked about reports that Israeli forces had killed Palestinians near an aid distribution centre in Gaza. Her reply was an attack on the BBC and was repeatedly false.
We don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak, unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything.
This contains a mix of misrepresentations and untruths. When speaking, Caroline Levitt held up a printout. It showed a post on X by a student activist. Its focus, and hers, was the BBC's coverage on Sunday. Residents had reported Israeli fire near an aid centre. Over the course of the day, the BBC repeatedly updated its coverage, as is standard on a breaking news story. Updated claims on fatalities were all clearly attributed to a number of sources in Gaza, including the Red Cross, which is an independent organisation. Sourcing like this is standard when a story is evolving and details are hard to confirm. It's also a necessary aspect of covering this conflict, given Israel doesn't allow international news organisations into Gaza. During the press conference, Caroline Levitt also had this particular criticism.
Unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth.
But BBC News didn't do that. It did quote the Hamas-run health ministry with clear attribution. The ministry, which is part of the Hamas-controlled government, is the main source of official information when it comes to casualties in Gaza. The BBC also reported statements it received from the Israel Defense Forces, which called the reports false and urged the media to be cautious. Caroline Levitt also made this claim.
They had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything.
This isn't true. The BBC didn't take down any of its coverage on this story. The articles remain online. And Caroline Levitt attributed this false claim to what she called a review of footage. That appears to be a reference to this BBC Verified live page post that looked at a widely shared video that some were claiming showed events near the aid centre. Using geolocation, BBC Verified confirmed that the video actually showed a different event, several kilometres away. This wasn't a BBC video being assessed, it wasn't a retraction, it wasn't a BBC admission of error. The live page post had been highlighted by the same X account Caroline Levitt had referenced. It misrepresented what BBC Verify had done. The White House then repeated the misrepresentation. For its part, the BBC says it stands by its journalism and has called once again to be allowed access to Gaza. Having made this range of false claims, Caroline Levitt had a further point to make.
We're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action, and I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same to reduce the amount of misinformation that's going around the globe on this front.
But in this case, either the White House didn't look into its claims about the BBC before bringing them to the podium, or had no concern that they weren't true.
How arrogant can you be, Caroline Levitt, to stand up there and we're going to check things first when you didn't even check a Twitter account that advanced a lie? These people are despicable. I keep telling y'all how trifling they are, and she is the chief liar. And just because she's convincing lying does not make her right. Oh, she is a convincing liar. Oh, she speaks with an authoritative voice. She is confident in her line, but Caroline Levitt is a damn liar. That's what she is, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. And she is the spokesperson for the liar-in-chief who the Washington Post documented in his first term in office, told over 30,000 lies and false and misleading statements. And yeah, it really is. It takes a lot of unmitigated gall to stand there and try to chastise the media when she's up here speaking, representing for Mr. 200 trade deals. Donald Trump, who claimed they've made 200 trade deals in the last few months, okay? Where is that? And then it's commonplace when you have a breaking news story. I've been in media 15 years, okay? It's commonplace when you have a breaking news story to constantly update the news story as you get more information. That's why when we're on live, you refresh your screen multiple times for breaking news stories. So this is what the BBC did, but I'm glad they put this fact check out. Hopefully that fact check goes viral, okay, to hold her accountable. And this is what you have to do with liars like this who use their position in the government to perpetuate false information.
Tyler, I'm looking for this video. Michael talked about these trade deals. That was this on Fox News. One of these trade. If you want to laugh about this here, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find the video. Because Bill Hemmer was interviewing one of these lying fools with Trump's administration, and the guy was talking about the trade deals, and we're going to be signing these, and even Bill Hemmer was like, okay, well, can you name one? And the guy's like, I can't do that right now. These people literally are insane. Matter of fact, okay, I found the video. Hold on one second. Let me pull this up. Y'all, this is, I was like, but they've been telling us now for weeks, we've got 7,500. We got 1,000 companies, 1,000 countries trying to reach us to do trade deals. Can you name one? No, I can't really name one. But it's happening. It's happening. Listen to this, y'all.
Who goes first, if anyone, as of today?
You mean who goes first in terms of countries?
In a new deal, correct.
Yeah, so there's a number of deals in the works for trading partners, particularly in Asia and in Europe as well. And, I expect that these deals to come out in a flurry as we get closer to the deadline. Some might come out very soon, but I expect there to be a flurry as we get closer to the deadline because of the process in which these deals are proceeding, where there's steps that everyone is taking to move the deal forward. And those steps are designed to yield success around the time of the deadline.
Got it. So I'm just, I mean to interrupt, but every time we do these segments, I'm just trying to find the name of a country who will be first in line. Can we say today which country that will be?
I cannot. I'm not.
While screaming socialism.
No, I can't. Tyler, I can't name one.
And look, I think that in itself tells how we are the laughing stock of the world. I mean, when we got the press secretary and folks that are supposed to be leading our country who can't even name a country of that instance, or even tell the truth behind the press secretary's desk. And I think it just shows how fragile our democracy is and how of a laughing stock we are. Elections have consequences, and it's sad to see what we're looking at. We are a laughing stock.
These folks lie and lie and lie, Matt. They just lie.
They do, but what's scary is they've lied enough and created an environment enough where people don't believe things or don't have critical thinking, right? The idea that the BBC would continuously update its coverage with new information should be something that is understood, right? Just simply, that's how it works in journalism, at least as far as I can tell. You get new information, you update it. But to characterize it as though they were wrong all the times before is part and parcel with the kind of disinformation and the kind of attack on truth and creation of alternative facts that we've seen them do since the first Trump administration. And it's effective to the group of people that they're talking to in making them question everything. It's really ridiculous. And frankly, it is part and parcel with exactly what we saw with COVID. During COVID, I remember being baffled that there wasn't like a basic understanding of the scientific method. You remember during that time, Fauci would get on TV and say, we've learned this one thing. It's changed our position or our opinion. We're now thinking this. Well, it was characterized like that was emblematic of them not being good scientists, rather than that being a part of how science works. You get new evidence, you change your position. So similar to that, this is the kind of thing that you see. You see attack on truth and the attack on the evolution of information via, what's reported. So, I mean, it's sad that it's coming out of the White House, an officially sanctioned part of our United States government that should be giving people good information. But it's part and parcel with what Trump has done since the first time he was in office.
Well, it's people who they are. Now, remember when all these fools were telling us that Christie known all of them? Under no circumstances are we going to bring Brago Garcia back from El Salvador. He ain't coming back, even though the United States told them to facilitate him coming back. Well, guess what? They've now done it, but guess what they've now done? They've also indicted him. The 29-year-old Salvadoran man, again, he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. He's now coming back to face more charges. Kilmer Brago Garcia has been indicted on 2 criminal counts in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee. He is charged with conspiracy to unlawfully transport illegal aliens for financial gain and with unlawful transportation of illegal aliens for financial gain. The unsealed indictment states that Abrego Garcia and others participated in a conspiracy over recent years to knowingly and unlawfully transport thousands of undocumented individuals who are not authorized to be in the United States, many of whom were members or associates of MS-13. The Trump administration asserts that Abrego Garcia was incorrectly deported to El Salvador in March due to an administrative error. Now, here's what's confusing. Now they're claiming this. All right, but you didn't have the evidence before? Also, do y'all remember this huge, they had this huge news conference in Virginia announcing the arrest of these MS-13 gang members? Attorney General Pam Bondi, she was there, standing tall, firm. They dropped all of those charges. These people, we can't give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the truth.
No, we can't, because you said exactly what I was thinking, which is, but didn't you have this evidence beforehand? I mean, I literally spent the first 3 days of this week trying a case in federal court. And I joked with one of the AUSAs. They said, oh, don't you want to come over here and do some criminal cases? And I said, no, because usually when the feds are doing criminal cases, they got you hemmed up. They got all the evidence they need to prove their case. They are far better than local law enforcement in terms of investigation. And that's what makes this reek of political more than, correct, proper, in that surely they had this evidence before and they didn't even prosecute him. And the interesting thing is, it's not a question of was he prosecuted, convicted, and then the question is, does he stay here because there's a security risk for him at home, which is what the immigration court ruled on, I believe, in 2019 in terms of sending him to his home country. Instead, they never prosecuted him. And it seems that if he's now public enemy number one and you're going to prosecute him, you either had the evidence before and you weren't doing your job, or the evidence is suspect because you now conveniently have it when you're, on the world stage for having wrongfully deported someone. So it reeks to me of political more than anything else, but not having seen any evidence or the indictment, I can't speak to the truth of it, but it seems very fishy.
I don't trust nothing these fools do, Tylik. I don't trust nothing. Nothing. They quick to make some stuff up.
And quick to pull some out of thin air. So like you said, I think everything that comes out of their mouth, everything that, every headline that we see, there has to be proper, backlogging on it to make sure that what they say is true, because they are known liars.
Michael?
Roland, I saw when this story broke and I immediately thought, okay, so you want to hold him accountable, but the traitor-in-chief, Benedict Donald, gives a pardon to 1,500 domestic terrorists that stormed the U.S. Capitol January 6th. Hundreds of them had been convicted. He gave a commutation, 14 commutations to people like Stuart Rhodes, people convicted of trying to overthrow. It's not conspiracy. It's
it don't matter. They were all domestic terrorists. Just go. Keep going.
Yeah, the domestic terrorism. So you give 1,500 pardons and 14 commutations, but now after the fact, here the Department of Justice, after they said there's no way he's going to come back to the U.S. Now they come with these charges. So I'm all for due process, but this doesn't pass the smell test at all. And I know Dr. Greg Carr always calls the U.S. a criminal enterprise, and sometimes I disagree with him on that, but this sounds like a criminal enterprise right here. The way DOJ's acting.
Well, how they act, but then also you have literally folk who are just stupid. And you want to see one of the stupid person, this one right here, y'all. This is Congresswoman Mary Miller. Now, Congresswoman Mary Miller, y'all, decided to send out a tweet. And, it's got to be rough Here's this dumbass from Illinois. She sent this tweet out. Let me zoom in. She goes, "It's deeply troubling that a Sikh was allowed to lead prayer in the House of Representatives this morning. This should have never been allowed to happen. America was founded as a Christian nation, and I believe our government should reflect that truth, not drift from it. May God have mercy." First of all, she was complaining that he was, actually in her tweet, she complained that he was a Muslim. This actually was changed. It was actually changed. Her original tweet said, "It's deeply troubling that a Muslim." Y'all, the man is Sikh. Sikhs are not Muslim.
It's crazy to me that folks who swear they're constitutionalists with freedom of religion, and yet she is doing something that clearly he has the right to practice what he wants to practice, and they're just idiotic at this point. It has to be drugs.
No. What it is that they actually are crazy and deranged. They actually are, and again, so this is the actual tweet. That was one that was a Democrat actually corrected her tweet. This is the tweet right here. She said, "Deeply troubling that a Muslim, but he's actually Sikh." But here's the whole deal: Muslims can also pray as well. These people want to create a theocracy, Michael. They don't respect other religions. And so I wonder if poor little Mary of Illinois, was she saying that same thing out if a rabbi, would she criticize a Jewish leader for praying in Congress by saying this was a Christian nation?
Maybe so. She may do that, Roland, but this was
no, she wouldn't. No, she wouldn't.
Well, we'll see, because Jews are not Christians. Okay, so you're doing this is white Christian nationalism that we're seeing, and this is not even understanding the founding of the country, because it was founded. You're dealing with freedom of religion. You didn't have to have a particular religion. You didn't have to be a Christian. Okay, what they want is a theocracy. And they're really pushing white Christian nationalism, and a theocracy is a form of government that is the laws are based upon principles coming from a certain religion, coming from a certain religious text, things of this nature. So so these are people who really, I would argue, if they're really Christians, because they don't live by Christian values that they even claim for themselves. The way you treat the poor, the way you treat those who are lesser than, the way you treat the elderly, things of this nature.
Matt, this was so funny. Again, this was her original tweet. She called Muslim. Then she changed it to a Sikh, and then she was like, "Oh hell, let me just delete it."
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody on her staff said, "Hey, Congresswoman, there's this little pesky thing called the Establishment Clause, where in the United States of America, the government, and by the way, you are a member of the government, cannot mandate the establishment of an official state religion. See, also, our home state just passed a law talking about putting up the 10 Commandments." Look, it's really a crazy world we live in, time we live in. There's no problem with people being religiously adherent. If that's right for their lives, they should do that. But a founding bedrock principle of this nation, to Michael's earlier point, was that you couldn't be forced to follow any one religion. You could follow any religion you wanted. And a lot of the big inroads that have been made at the Supreme Court over the years have been religious, right? Via Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, other people who fought for their right to exercise, any religious beliefs that they wanted. So that being said, she probably deleted it because somebody on her staff told her that it was patently unconstitutional. But the funny thing about that is we live in an age where the Constitution is only used as a bludgeon, not as a barrier, right? So it can't be a barrier to what you want to do legislatively or ideologically, but you can use it to beat others over the head. And, that's what we hear every time they trumpet the Second Amendment or some other amendment that is germane to whatever point they're arguing at the time. But this is blatantly unconstitutional. The 10 Commandments having to be up in classrooms, particularly when you look at, when some people that are members of non-Christian religions said, okay, why don't we just post, various things in, I think it was Arabic. I think they wanted to post the Ten Commandments in Arabic. I might have been here in Texas. I can't recall where. But people lost their minds, right? Because the truth is, it's not about being religiously adherent. It's about, to your point, Michael, about white Christian nationalism. And even more than that, it's about the appearance of being a Christian. It is not about living a Christian life. And it's about making sure others adhere to your version of Christianity that allows you to get the social gravitas that people want from that. That's all this is about.
We know that's what it's all about. I love it when these people get caught on hot mics. A Republican in the House, they admit it. Not only do they want to cut $880 billion in Medicaid, they said, all y'all senior citizens, man, get off y'all ass and go to work. Listen to this, y'all. Unbelievable. Caught on the mic talking about this and literally saying they need to go to work. Watch this.
You've got spending and you've got revenue, and you set it up to where you can increase your revenue, and you do that by lowering taxes and making it more advantageous for people to work and to get off of Medicaid, get off of Social Security, get back into the workforce, and that decreases it on that side of the equation as well, on the mandatory side.
Get off of Social Security, get back into the workforce. Okay, Mike Collins of Georgia. What the hell, Matt?
Well, we could take a page from Emmanuel Macron, the French, because I think they revolted when they tried to change their retirement age from, 62 to 63. I mean, this is crazy. And this is the thing I haven't understood. Maybe this is my own naivete in thinking Trump and team are smarter than they are. And I know this is obviously a congressional member saying this, but I don't understand politically why you would ever touch Social Security when the biggest part of your base is people who take Social Security. It seems to me to be shooting yourself in the foot, for some immediate political benefit and killing yourself down the road. Because even if Trump doesn't decide to try to, defy the Constitution openly and run for a third term or try to, finagle a third term, there are the J.D. Vances and the like in the GOP who surely want to take his place. And I don't see how you don't see this as political suicide, because just like those white people in Iowa were mad at Chuck Grassley, they're going to be right at those congressional offices saying, no. You can take whatever you want in terms of SNAP benefits from these Negroes, but you better not take my check. You start touching that check, they're going to have a real problem. And I don't see why you would ever do this.
Because they don't care, Michael. And then these same white Republicans keep voting against their own economic interest.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be such good Christians, Roland, and look how they disrespect the elderly. You're talking about a lot of people who are retired, who paid into Social Security for like 40 years, okay? Now you want them to get off Social Security like as a handout and go back to work. Okay, so little Mikey there, I don't think he may not win re-election, because the people he's talking about are the people who voted the highest rates, senior citizens. Okay, he's going to piss them off. That's going to go in his opponent's campaign commercial. I guarantee you, that's going to be in his opponent's campaign commercial. They need to vote him out of office.
I run it all day, Tyler.
No, absolutely. But it's like I said before, it's crazy to me that, every election cycle we get here and folks are voting against their own interests. Like, we got people that are working their entire lives paying into Social Security and then voting for politicians to turn around and try to gut the very thing that benefits them. And so, and the truth is, like, many of these people, they're gonna go home and retire themselves too, and gonna be looking for it when it's their time. But while they're sitting in positions of power and on a pretty chair, they want to cut the benefits from SNAP to Social Security into all these different things that are really benefiting their base.
All right, folks. Am I the only one who likes a really good read? Oh my God, we had 3 this week, but we're gonna go to a couple of them right now. I'm gonna do one a little bit later. So in Tarrant County, Alyssa Simmons, she's the sister. The Republicans are trying to redraw the lines in Tarrant County. And so what they did was they paid a company out of Virginia to do the work, but then the white conservative Republican judge, he didn't want them testifying in open court. Well, Commissioner Simmons wasn't having none of that.
History will not applaud us if we choose any other map than the current map. These truths are made self-evident is the opening line of the Declaration of Independence, but truths are not at work today. We are engaged in an unusual mid-decade redistricting process. Didn't say it was illegal, I said it was unusual. Something that typically occurs only after the decennial U.S. Census, every 10 years, using updated population data. Yet here we are, attempting to redraw our precinct lines based on data that is 5 years old. As I've said before, it just doesn't make sense to redraw boundaries with 2020 census data. This process began in April with a 3-2 party line vote over the objections of myself and Commissioner Miles. The stated reason for this sudden push has been to rebalance precincts by population. Yet the previous Commissioners Court, after the 2020 census, found our precincts to be balanced within a 2% deviation, well within the 10% legal limit. This raises a fundamental question. Why the urgency now? Public Legal Interest Foundation was selected and is being paid with taxpayers' money, but they're not working for taxpayers. They've made that abundantly clear. While making $450 an hour, they have refused to conduct briefings, refused to show up here to hearings, and refused to answer questions. Now, I am not taking my questions today for this Virginia-based firm back behind closed doors. They're going to bring their butts out here and stand at that podium and answer my questions. Only weak leaders bully. Only weak leaders bully others. And I'm about sick and tired of weak leaders, particularly men. So I want PILF to come out here and answer my questions. And Judge O'Hare, quite interesting that today you cannot stomach being called a racist. However, you are memorialized on video on the Wolf and the Shepherd's podcast proclaiming, quote, if you are a Republican office holder and you haven't been called a racist, then you haven't done a thing. So be proud of being called a racist today. Those referring to these maps and this process, and even you as a racist, have a constitutional right to do that. We have got to stop sitting up here violating people's First Amendment right. This is crazy. Again, we ran for these positions. Everybody doesn't love me. They call me all kinds of names. I take it. I take it on the phone. I'm not a wimp. I'm not weak. I put up with tons of bullying from you, but I'm still here. Now, let's talk about the individual brought in to lead this effort as the map maker. Adam Kincaid, speaking of weak men, where is he? Where is, we paid a demographer, a map maker, to draw these maps. And we cannot get an audience with him. In my one call with PILF, my staff and I were told when I asked for a meeting with the map maker that he was on vacation for a month. But he managed to crank out 5 maps in 2 days, okay? So I guess he pulled up from his vacation to send us those 5 maps. And let's talk about these other 2 maps that cropped up. Where's PILF? Where are they?
They're available if the court would like to.
They need to be available out here, Chandler. Who's stopping them from coming?
I will answer that question.
Okay.
They have told me what they're going to do.
They don't get to tell us, Tim, what they're going, Judge, what they're going to do.
Well, and you don't have subpoena power to make them come out here. So they have said they're going to be back there to answer legal questions if you have any legal questions.
I don't
and
have
if you
legal
don't have any legal questions, they're not going to come out here and testify or be questioned. And that's what they have told me, and that's what's going to happen.
No, that's not how that works.
I think it's how it's going to work. But it may not be how you wish it worked.
It's not how it should work. They are being paid by this county. So if you directed them to stay back there.
No, I did not direct them to stay back there.
Okay.
They told me what they were going to do, and I think it's a good idea, actually.
They are the vendor. They don't get to tell us what they're going to do. Tell them to get out here, Chandler.
And we made them aware of your request, and they made the same statement.
Where are they posted up at?
I believe they're back here in
Back
the
where?
security area.
What room?
Back here in the admin area.
Gerald, go get them.
That's
Tell them
we're
to
not
come
going to
out
have
here.
a scene in a show here.
I'm going to finish my comments.
They've made their statement. They're going to follow what they've said.
A vendor does not tell the customer what they're going to do. Where's this guy at? So where are these people at, Chandler? Or I'm sorry, Gerald, what did they tell you, sir?
They said they don't know. They're not in the administrator's office, and they don't know their whereabouts.
Okay. They ran. We're paying these people. Did y'all hear me? Say yes.
Any calls to have the crowd speak out, I will have, as the presiding officer, I will have the crowd removed. So I will ask you respectfully not to do that again. If you do it again, I'll have the entire crowd vacate the room.
Okay, they probably don't care. It's probably time to go eat lunch. Everybody's not afraid of you, okay?
But don't expect them to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
So, the legitimacy of this process is deeply in question.
Y'all, I covered Fort Worth City Council. I covered Travis County Commissioner's Court in Austin. I can tell y'all right now, I have never in my political career seen a vendor tell the Commissioner's Court or the City Council what we're going to do and we're not going to do. They did not testify because the Republican county judge told them, you don't need to come out. Matt, I think you want to make a comment real quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to break this down real quick because it's kind of hard to understand if you don't know Texas law. But basically, the Commissioner's Court in Texas is basically the equivalent of a county, of a city council for the county. So they're the governing body for the county. The white guy in the middle is what we call the county judge. He's the equivalent of the mayor of the county. And what they're doing here that's really insidious, and maybe you were going to say this, Roland, but a commissioner's court can go into what's called executive session. And in executive session, that's where they can make decisions behind closed doors. So a commissioner's court, just like any other entity, is allowed to be advised by either the county attorney or outside attorneys on any issue, whether it's an employment issue, it's a vending issue, some other issue, because like any entity, they're entitled to have an attorney. But what they were doing here is, to her point, they're a vendor. So there's somebody that the county is paying
that
to do a service for them.
Taxpayers are paying for.
Taxpayers are paying, but I bet what they were saying is, we're a law firm. And because we're a law firm, you can talk to us in executive session about this issue, right? Rather than doing it out in the public. And what she's doing that I think is brilliant, I mean, if you don't know this little nuance, is she's saying, no, we're paying you to do a service for the county. I mean, I don't know what their contract says, but presumably it says we're not hiring you to give us legal counsel in the way other attorneys are. And that distinction is very important.
So,
and she's also doing that so when there's a lawsuit, that gets to be entered into the record as well. So that was Tarrant County, y'all. But if y'all want to see them throw down in Louisiana, this right here was just gorgeous.
Opportunity district is to get over the 50% threshold.
50.1, yeah, you could do that.
So I would debate that there's a lot of opportunities out there for everybody, the qualified candidate, to run. Right there in my home parish, we have a black sheriff that was elected by a landslide in a 65% white community.
I'm not telling you there aren't exceptions to the rules, but if you look at the history of voting in Louisiana, the history does and the empirical data just doesn't show that by and large. So if you want to show me some one-off that's an exception, I'll take that. I'll even tell you.
Well, we have another one-off. We had a black mayor that was elected in a predominantly white community recently. So we have a black marshal that represents the same community.
What I would tell you to that, Rep. Farnham, is if you want to give me out of the thousands of elections that we have, if you want to tell me 10, that's less than 1%. I get what you're saying. If you want to do it anecdotally, you could do that. But if we're going to go by the empirical data, we could do that. Look, I'm just telling you.
It depends on how far you go back in time.
Let me finish though. So let me finish, because I think you're a perfect example, not necessarily from a racial perspective, but from a party perspective. I mean, you ran as a Democrat not long ago and lost and switched to Republican and you won. I mean, so the thing is, the difference between that is you could switch from Democrat to Republican. I can't switch from black to white. And so, you know, we can go off these one-offs all day long, but you're a perfect example. Not even 6 months later, just by switching party, you were able to come and claim a seat. We don't have that opportunity.
Well, I think that the quality of the candidate is far more important than the color of their
Well, I would
skin.
say that I don't think any quality's changed in you in 6 months, and you ran against the same person and beat him.
Well,
So I don't know if I agree with that. But
party affiliation is not allowed to be considered in this process.
Unless you're telling me you gained some magnificent qualities in a short period of time.
I would agree with you that nothing changed about the character in 6 months.
Well, I agree. So I think that negates the statement you just made.
But when you get into the 14th and 15th Amendment, that disallows a lot of the things that we're talking about.
We're talking about the Constitution, and I think the maps, the court has already decided that the maps that we're under are unconstitutional.
Damn, Tyler, you could switch from Democrat to Republican. I can't switch from black to white.
Exactly, and I think Gary Chambers said it perfectly when he said, "You know, blackness is not a political convenience; it's a lived reality." And to think that you could just rebrand it overnight, we can't just change parties to survive. We have to change the systems in order to do that. And I think, you know, it's very cynical and it's crazy to see. But these are the times we're living in, and I think people are really exposing themselves to who they really are. But it's up to us to ensure that these folks just got to go. It's got to go, and it's our lived reality. We can't change this color in our skin or how we are presented in the world.
Yep, this is who they are, Michael. This is who they are. 30 seconds.
Well, absolutely, this is who they are, and they've been like this for for decades. And I mean, you're dealing with Louisiana that has a history of disenfranchisement when it comes to African Americans. So I find it interesting that he wants to deal with one-offs, but doesn't want to look at the empirical data.
Yep.
In this, you know, so this is more of the voter suppression and the gerrymandering.
Yep,
that we talk about.
Well, and the crazy thing is, the Supreme Court's already ruled. So it's like, dude, just change the map. Y'all lost. Lost to the Supreme Court, the Fifth Circuit, back to the Supreme Court, back to the Fifth Court, Fifth Circuit, y'all still lost. All right, y'all, going to a quick break. We come back, of course, dealing with the issue of mental health. It is a huge issue these days for so many different people. Impacts all of our families. We'll talk about that next with an expert in this field. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
We are here talking about the unfortunate case of 30-year-old Adriana Smith, who was diagnosed and pronounced as brain dead at 9 weeks pregnant and is being kept alive by the state to carry this pregnancy out to full term without any input from her family. It's a really harrowing example of the lack of bodily autonomy we have in a post-war world, and we're going to dream bigger. Join us on The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
This week on A Balanced Life, we're talking about single father parenting. You've got it. Faith, family, and fatherhood. What does it mean to be a single parent father, spending time with your kid, whether it's a son or a daughter? Whether you ask for it, plan for it, or by tragedy or accident, you step into the role.
I didn't take it as a woe is me moment or like, what am I going to do? It's like, matter of fact, I looked at it, I rolled up my sleeves and I said, hey, whatever it takes.
That's all this week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
I'm Russell L. Honoré, Lieutenant General, United States Army, retired, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, mental illness is real in this country. It impacts every family, friends, sororities, fraternities, groups. It does not matter. And we're seeing dramatic increase when it comes to adolescents and adult black males. According to the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities, black men are four times more likely. I mean, you look at these numbers, folks, they've changed significantly. 4 times more likely to die by suicide than black women. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry has seen a 60% rise in suicide rates among black boys over the last 2 decades. Licensed psychotherapist Tatiana Melendez is here to talk about this. Tatiana, Doc, glad to have you here. What the hell is going on?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. I'll tell you, this conversation is deeply personal for me, and I believe it's urgent. I am a woman of color. I have 2 brothers, one who has a learning disability. And, when we lost my mom, my brothers didn't know how to actually respond. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that, our black men are to suffer in silence. I tell people mental health isn't for black isn't just a clinical issue. It is wrapped up in racism. You have masculinity, you have culture, our black men just trying to survive, and a lot of just unspoken pain.
So when you say unspoken pain, I mean, let's just be real. We have to just own some stuff, and that is, the reality is we raise black boys. First of all, we say, you a man. No, he's a black boy. And I said this is years ago. Dr. Steve Perry and I were talking about this here. And as somebody who travels the country and who folks stop me, and mothers and fathers and people want selfies and stuff, next month I'll be at Essence Festival. And I can tell you, it's crazy how many times I'll take a photo with a boy, and he's not smiling. And I would say, bro, we ain't taking this photo. And I've had mothers go, what do you mean? I said, I'm not taking a photo that's a prison photo. And I said, and seriously, you've got boys who are 7, 8, 9, and 10, and they try and look all hard in photos because we have conditioned them to say, you a man, you hard, you're supposed to be hard. No, he's a boy. And I think, and then this whole idea where you don't cry, you don't talk about stuff. If you hear that from the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm sorry, you get to be 18 and 20, you have built up a shell that is hard to crack.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, when you look at, we can talk about systemic racism, but beyond that, our Black men have this social pressure, this unspoken rule that Black men have to be tough. They need to be unshakable. They never need to show any form or type of weakness. And so all these emotions, what happens is they get buried. And the only acceptable feeling becomes anger. And everything else is just pushed down. And so when you look at like just Black men, period, growing up in a world that's constantly telling you that your existence is a threat. Not a real human experience. So you have police brutality, you have job discrimination. Black men carry stress that just never turns off. And we want to call that normal. And so these kids are being raised, hey, you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show any type of emotion. And so our Black men, they don't even know how to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is now treated as a weakness, when in reality, vulnerability should be a strength. Too many of our men was just they're raised in these environments that doesn't really give them space to be whole humans. And so they're learning to mask depression with, you have drinking, you have sex, you have rage, people are working a lot. And, I tell clients all the time, true masculinity is really having the strength to actually say, I need help. Our men don't know how to say they need help. It's about being brave enough to be seen fully, not when you're just winning, but when you're actually wounded,
So how do we start that? And who has that conversation?
It depends on where people want to turn to. Some people may turn to religion and spirituality. I do believe there's a lack of knowledge. There may be an education component. If we were to look at education, I think it's very important to make sure that our Black men actually know what the symptoms are. But I'll tell you, I have clients that come into our practice, especially our Black men, when they decide they want to participate in therapy. You can ask them, they don't know what the symptoms are, or they're quick to say, oh, that's a white man's thing, when it's not. Mm-hmm. Know what depression looks like, know what anxiety looks like, know what PTSD looks like, and how it actually manifests in men. And so we also just don't have enough therapists that look like us. They don't understand the cultural context of what Black people have been through. So I think that creates a problem. And so men, they're like, I don't want to cry every day. And they assume that they're fine. But if they actually understood what depression looks like, it's not about crying every day. It may be the irritability they may be experiencing. It may be fatigue. It may be numbness. And if they can be educated, I think that's a place to start. Like I said, some people turn to religion, but that's even a tricky space, to focus on mental health, because I do believe it's very powerful. I believe that, faith and mental health can go hand in hand. I believe people can pray, but you can't pray away your symptoms. You know what I mean? You have to participate in some sort of therapeutic intervention.
It's interesting you're talking about that. There was a clip before. I'm going to go to, I got three brothers on the panel today, so I'm going to go to this clip here. So Mark Lamont Hill he's on the Joe Budden podcast, and they were talking, and he dropped this comment in, and then one of the other cats said, hold up, did you just say you dealing with depression? Listen to this.
I've been dealing with depression too, so I've been trying to manage that, and so then I do a lot of over exercise and things like that to calm myself, and then that makes me super tired.
Does your wife do Red Bull too?
No, she won't touch the stuff.
Is she not on top of you about the Red Bull? You seem too wise.
Wait, I hide under the desk.
Too wise to do Red Bull the way you do.
You just skipped over depression? You say you deal with depression? Yeah, like we just skipped over.
It's Joe Budden podcast. The Red Bull's way more interesting.
I didn't hear him say depression.
You did. He said I deal with depression.
So it's just trying to find ways to regulate that, and so it affects my sleep patterns.
Red Bull ain't it.
No, Red Bull is just to stay awake for the show. Because what happens is I'll sleep for 2 hours and then wake up and then be like, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm like, what the fuck, till like 7.
Have you considered making it maybe not like an everyday show?
I have, but then it's
money
like, I really like paying my bills.
Thank you for the donations. You understand this means a lot. You have no idea how much this means to me out there. I'm so gracious. I'm just,
How many levels you do a week?
3.
A week?
2 or 3, yeah. I don't do a lot of Red Bull.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of. I'm not like a. People assume because
So Doc, here's what's crazy. So they were talking about Red Bull and staying up, and so he dropped the depression point, and he talked about a lot of stuff that he was dealing with. Let's see if I can play that.
Joe, you know it's not mental health doesn't work like that.
Hold on, let me play.
I got a stupid question for you.
Yeah.
What the hell are you depressed about, man?
Joe, you know it's not mental health doesn't work like that.
Well,
unless he wants to.
That's true.
asking.
No, I mean, the short answer is that I have to take care of a lot of people.
Day in the life of a black man.
And that creates emotional toll, financial toll.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's just having to, all that shit, and my own health, right? So all those things combine. You know what I mean? So like my wife's mother's sick. My mother she's not sick, but she's just needs a lot of care because she's blind. I got a brother I got to take care of who's locked up. I got his son who's not locked up, who I got to care for because he's 13 and black and outside. You know what I'm saying? And a good kid, but just a lot of that. I got my own.
Your brother's gonna be locked up for how much longer?
He'll be home in a year and a half.
Okay.
He'll be home in a year and a half.
All right, fans. Sigh of relief. I thought that the Reno would be more than I was bargaining.
Okay, so you have some interesting. First of all, I want you to break down that was a 2-minute clip. I just want you to break down what you saw there and heard.
You know what? I will tell you that more black men in leadership, in the eyes of the public, those that are very wealthy, they are the ones who are actually suffering in silence, especially when our black men are expected to be the emotional or spiritual backbone, either for an entire community, if there are a pastor, or if they are, the breadwinner in the family. And his story just really highlights toxic expectations. I'm not sure if he's religious, but if there's spiritual pressure, but he's expected to show up no matter what, even if he is suffering in silence. And if he has someone in his life that's not supporting that process, because I tell you, sometimes, the women in these relationships may not support the way they need to because they don't know how to, and so there's some healing, I think, that definitely needs to take place there. And the only way that happens is if we actually start breaking the cycle of what our fathers and our grandfathers didn't know that they were in. And so it's really learning the language of emotions, even if we are taught to ignore them. It's okay to cry. It's okay to choose peace over pride. It's okay to go to therapy. And a lot of people will go to therapy and say, I'm just trying to survive. No, I need you to thrive. And so for this next generation, he has to also be able to teach his children, hey, I need to raise my differently. I need to live out loud. I need to finally say, what has happened to me isn't my fault, but healing is my responsibility.
Were you bothered, like the other two guys were, when Joe said, what the hell you got to be depressed about? Which actually caused Mark to actually explain what he was going through. Did you find that question problematic?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we cannot support and have a space that's safe to actually start normalizing therapy, or black men participating in therapy, and I'm happy he actually spoke on it. But
so how should Joe? So Doc, how should Joe have approached that? How should he have because first of all, remember, the other two guys said you mentioned depression, but then they let the conversation go on talking about drinking Red Bull. Joe brought it back. How should Joe have asked the question?
I think he could have reframed it and asked him, like, how can I actually help you? How can we make this space available to you for you to be vulnerable? What is actually going on?
Right. I think if you're going to ask the question, if you want him to unpack it, you should say, hey, Mark, hold tight 1 second. You said you're depressed. Explain what that means. What does it mean when you say you're depressed? So you think that's how the question should have been asked? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Digging deeper to understand whether it's a root cause analysis to figure out what is actually going on with him so he can actually support him in this space. But he actually made it hard for him to actually speak on it again. Because again, our black men are supposed to show up, be ready, be on at all times. But this didn't start here today. This is generational. We are taught to be and get things done.
Yep. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Matt, you were nodding a whole lot when Mark was speaking, and then when Doc was talking. So take it away.
So the question I have, Doc, and thank you for sharing with us all your insight. But to be completely candid, I see this on social media all the time. Brothers talking about this, and a lot of times they say, "Why would I ever open up to my woman or to my family? Because it's going to be weaponized against me." And you see people talking all the time about how they tried to be vulnerable one time, and then the response from either a romantic partner or family members were to either denigrate them, right, or to make light of it, or as you kind of alluded to earlier, say something like you just need to pray, something to that effect. So my question for you is, how, if at all, do you address that with the larger kind of circles in Black men's lives to create that safety and I guess kind of help their ecosystem recognize if you're going to really create this safe space, then here's how you not only support, but how you make sure you don't weaponize. Because on the ground, that's what I see. I don't know if anybody else has seen that anecdotally, but I've seen a lot of comments about Black men in therapy, and almost always that's the reticence, is not only not wanting to look weak, but not wanting to have it weaponized against you down the road. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
So I think I can answer that in a two-part. One, I definitely think that it starts with creating spaces where Black men can be honest without actually being judged. So I don't care if it's the barbershop, if it's mentorship circles, if it's social media campaigns. Sometimes just even having a friend who can check in on you constantly can make a difference. But I think when it comes down to the role of a woman, especially because a lot of these men are in relationships, but we also can play a role in helping our Black men open up. And so we've always held a space, for Black women have always held a space for our men, but I think we have to ask women now to hold that space differently. Instead of pressuring the Black man, you just need to talk to me. I'm talking to you. You ain't saying anything to me. I think creating a space through presence, through patience and listening without judgment. Yes, encourage, therapy, but also be able to check on not only, like for me, if in a relationship, like, okay, I need to check on my own conditioning. How am I actually responding to my partner? And if we want our men to open up, we have to allow them to open up without calling them weak. And they're carrying a lot. We're carrying a lot. And so to be real, Black women have been therapists, without degrees for a very long time. So we know what it takes. I think we just have to not only protect our space, but just show up differently and be able to reframe and relabel what it means to have a mental health illness or challenge or concerns.
Tyler?
Yeah, thank you so much. I felt like I've been sitting in a session right here, so thank you for it. I've been telling myself lately that mental health isn't a weakness, but it's survival. And as you said, it's to thrive. And I believe healing my trauma and childhood trauma is the new sexy. And so showing up for me and finding grace is the new sexy. And I believe that we need more cultural, competent, as you said, therapists and policies that are school-based and community-rooted, where folks can get introduced at a young age. My question to you would be, how do you approach healing when the trauma is both personal and structural at the same time?
Repeat the question, the end of the question.
Yeah, how do you approach healing when trauma is both personal and structural at the same time?
I think with healing, not only the education, breaking the cycles, make sure we understand, like, hey, our fathers, our grandfathers, we've all been through things, and renaming the language for our emotions and providing education. Wait, what was the last part? Because I lost track of what I was actually trying to respond to.
I was saying, so both personal when it comes to like the family, but also the structural parts of it as well. Like how do you approach it when the trauma is first?
So I'll tell you, because I have had an experience in my own trauma and experiences, and I'll be honest, I think that I got to a point I thought I could save everyone. I show up, I show out, whatever I can do, and it ended up having a reverse effect on me because I end up, finding myself spiraling. But personally, I encourage my brothers, anybody that's in my family, hey, it is okay to cry. It's okay to grieve. We've all experienced our trauma, but we need to make sure we understand what exactly we've been through, and whatever we can do to provide the additional knowledge, make sure that we provide education, and really show the importance of what mental health is and how we actually can benefit from it. And it's okay to participate in therapy. It's okay to not feel okay.
Michael.
The question that I had, Doctor, is looking at the study, it made a direct correlation between higher stress levels and symptoms of depression. And it also talked about experiences of everyday racial and non-racial discrimination, et cetera. It talked about the environment as well, pressures coming from the environment. What are some ways that we can reduce the stress level, which will ultimately reduce incidences of depression in these young African-American men?
I'm not sure why it's a little broken up and missing parts of like some of the questions, but it sounds like you were asking, how can we reduce stress levels in environments?
Yeah, the stress levels, because there's a correlation. The strongest predictor of depression in the study was perceived stress, and he talked about higher stress levels had significantly greater odds of exhibiting depressive symptoms.
Right, Doc. So you said, how do you reduce stress in order to not fall into a state of depression?
How to reduce stress and work?
Yeah, how to reduce stress in order to stave off depression.
I think when we have chaotic environments, people often feel powerless. And so having routines, whether it's, knowing how you're actually starting your day, having some routine, there's different things you can do, whether it's, taking breaks, daily actions, having, a playlist, but having some grounding techniques. And I think most importantly is being able to have some emotional boundaries. Most of us, we don't. We have these high levels of stress. We have high demand jobs, and we need to circle back, have powerful boundary setting. And so when we're stressed, it reduces this overwhelm. It allows us to stay emotionally intact. And so we have to use, maybe some environment hacks, calming scents. We may need to soften like our lighting, but whatever we can do to regulate movement in high stress, that is the best thing that you can do to manage.
All right, Doc, any online sources you would direct people to if they need something to look up?
You can come to my website, ttmcounseling.com. We have all the resources that are needed.
And again, you said ttmcounseling.com.
ttmcounseling.com. We're based in LA. However, we service I think now we're at 32 states. And we have every type of resource you can possibly think of. We have groups, individual therapy for those that are actually.
All right, then. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks so very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, then. Let me thank Tyler. Let me thank Michael. Let me thank Matt for being on today's show. Gentlemen, I certainly appreciate it. No, I did not forget about the Senator Cory Booker video. My dad texted me like, when you going to play that? I'm like, I got it. I'm going to play it. Calm down. So it was a little drama between Senator Cory Booker and Senator Ted Cruz in the U.S. Senate this week. Yo, I can't help but not play it.
I would make two brief observations. Number one, it is interesting as our Democrat colleagues defend these nationwide injunctions that neither of them made any reference to the fact that the number of nationwide injunctions issued in the first 4 months is greater than the entire 20th century and is greater than all of the nationwide injunctions issued against Bush, Obama, and Biden combined, nor did they address the disturbing fact that of the 40 universal injunctions that have been issued in the last 4 months, 35 of them came from the same 5 judicial districts. There is a reason for this. Blue state attorneys general and radical leftist groups are seeking out affirmatively radical judges who they know will impose their own policy preferences. If it were simply, as our Democrat colleagues said, judges following the law, then you wouldn't have to keep going to the same radical judges over and over and over again, because judges across the board should do that. But the litigants know exactly who the zealots are that are on the bench, and that's who they are seeking out. I will also point out that the discussion about the urgency of protecting the safety of judges, listen, I agree. We should protect the safety of every federal judge, but it is interesting because my Democrat colleagues were utterly silent during 4 years of the Biden administration when you had violent mobs outside the homes of Supreme Court justices unhappy with the Supreme Court's ruling in Dobbs, and the Biden Justice Department refused to enforce federal law and protect the justices. And my Democrat colleagues were perfectly happy with Supreme Court justices being threatened if they disliked the rulings that were coming from the Supreme Court justices. Unlike my colleagues, I believe we should protect judges regardless of whether I agree with them or not. We should protect their safety. And every time you hear a Democrat senator talk about protecting judges from acts of violence, you ought to ask them, why did they not have a word to say about the Biden Justice Department allowing mobs to threaten the families and children of Supreme Court justices night after night after night, while Biden's Attorney General refused to follow the law? And with that,
Mr. Chairman, would you indulge me for a moment?
We indulge you every moment.
I appreciate that act of generosity. It's just something you said that I think is actually dangerous and should be addressed, and you're welcome. But when Judge Anderol was killed in New Jersey, the Republican colleagues in the Senate, their outpouring of support, their outpouring of concern, they're willing to work together on a bipartisan bill was extraordinary. It shows the truth of this institution that, despite some of the fiery rhetoric that you were sowing, we're really a bipartisan, working bipartisanship. Cornyn and Coons, after the incidents you're talking about, got together and actually passed a bill to better protect our Supreme Court justices, many of whom are friends of ours. You know, Gorsuch and I disagree on a lot of stuff. I knew his wife before he did. We studied together at Oxford. This implication that there was silence when there were threats on their people's houses is absolutely absurd. I remember the rhetoric and the comments, the concern from Coons. I actually distinctly remember you, Chairman, on more than once condemning those attacks on Republican-appointed jurists. To say things like that feeds just the partisanship in this institution and feeds the fiery rhetoric. And it's just plain not true. It's just plain not true. And I think you know that, but we can pull from the record from my colleagues in real time, literally days afterwards, condemning it. There's a lot of substantive things to say here, but to think that the lack of humanity when people's homes are being threatened was not in existence, I think that's unfair and really concerns me that you would say that in the way that you did.
Well, I thank my colleague from New Jersey. I will note, as John Adams observed, that facts are stubborn things. And it is existing federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1507, that makes it a crime to protest at a judge's home. And the law provides whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice, or with the intent or of influencing any judge, juror, witness, or court officer in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building housing a court of the United States, in or near a building or residence occupied or used by such judge, juror, witness, or court officer, or with such intent uses any sound truck or similar device or resorts to any other demonstration in or near any such building or residence, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. That is federal criminal law. Night after night after night, angry mobs were outside the Supreme Court justices' homes, and in the entire course of it, the Biden Justice Department prosecuted nobody. We had the Attorney General sitting at that table, and multiple Republican senators asked him, why are you not enforcing the law? What they are doing is a crime. And my friend from New Jersey said, it is a lie to say we, the Democrats, condone this. I would challenge, my friend, find a single Democrat senator on this committee holding the Attorney General to account for not enforcing this law. I was here at those hearings, and I do not recall a single Democrat senator saying to the Attorney General, you should arrest these people who are violating the law. You should protect the judges. I agree that there was general language against violence, but not a single Democrat senator that I ever saw in this committee was willing to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland to account for flagrantly disregarding the federal criminal law because the Biden administration agreed with the protesters and I think wanted those justices harassed at their home.
I really appreciate that you've now shifted the accusation you made earlier. Your accusation was that we were silent in the face of protests at Supreme Court justices' homes. Again, we joined together in a bipartisan way, not only to condemn that, but to pass legislation to extend round-the-clock security protection, literally days. It was introduced May 5th, passed the Senate in a bipartisan fashion on May 9th. So if you're saying that we didn't criticize
Did the
Merrick
Biden
Garland,
DOJ arrest a single person under this law?
You are now changing the
No, that is what I said. That is what I said.
Again, I'll pull the record.
Did the Biden DOJ arrest even one?
Again.
The answer is no.
My point to you is the accusation that the Democrats on this committee do not care about the safety of federal judges. I did not interrupt you, sir. I would appreciate if you let me finish. I am sick and tired of hearing the kind of heated partisan rhetoric, which is one of the reasons why we have such divisions in this country. The attacks we see from the President of the United States of America trolling and dragging judges through is what we should be talking about that puts people in danger. I'm simply taking issue with the claim that you made at the top that people on the Democratic side of the aisle do not care about the safety and the security of judges and said nothing. You said we were silent after people's houses were protested. That is a patent lie, sir. We were not silent. We took action. We've joined in a bipartisan way to protect those judges, as was done in a bipartisan way to protect a New Jersey judge after their horrific attack at their home. So I see you now trying to shift the debate to whether we talk to an attorney general. I'm simply taking issue with this accusation that somehow we Democrats are so bad because we don't call out threats to our judicial colleagues. And that is wrong. You could change the argument now that you want, but what you said was patently not true and was, in fact, a patent lie.
So I do enjoy the fact that my colleague from New Jersey raises his voice and says it's a patent lie and says he's doing so in defense of lowering the rhetoric. There is some irony to doing those two together. I'll point out that in the entire course of those remarks, Senator Booker did not dispute the central point I made, which is the Biden Justice Department arrested 0 people, prosecuted 0 people for violating the criminal law, and every Democrat senator on this committee was silent about it. And this was an ongoing pattern for months. And I would note also that the senator from New Jersey clutched his pearls about language threatening judges, and yet I do not recall a single Democrat senator of this committee saying a word when Chuck Schumer went to the steps of the Supreme Court and threatened the safety of the Supreme Court justices by name, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, and he said, you have unleashed the whirlwind and you will pay the price. And not a single Democrat senator had a word to say about this. And so their outrage is selective. And I will give my colleague from New Jersey a chance to just answer a simple yes-no question. Should the Biden Justice Department have enforced the criminal law against protesting at a justice's home? Yes or no?
So the rank hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer apologizing the next day and you holding that standard for him and not for your president, who you actually rightfully described when you were running against him in a primary. I would love to run those tapes of how you perfectly talked about the danger of our president and his rhetoric. But now you are failing, in fact, blind to the very things you're accusing Chuck Schumer of. I don't think Donald Trump would know an apology if it hit him in the head. Never has said apologizing. So again, you are very, very, sir, very, very deep into the waters of hypocrisy in your criticisms of Chuck Schumer.
So let the record reflect that Spartacus did not answer the question and did not tell us whether the criminal law should be enforced, because he knows the answer is yes, and he knows that the Biden Department of Justice was being wildly political and partisan in refusing to enforce the law because they disagreed with the Supreme Court justice's rulings.
It's without a doubt that Ted Cruz is one of the most pathetic, despicable individuals that serves in the United States Senate. He is an asshole, and it is shameful that I have to deal with him being the junior senator from Texas because he has no integrity, no honor, no decency. And yes, the things that he said about Donald Trump were absolutely true. And if there's anybody that has sold their soul out to Donald Trump, it is Ted Cruz. And so that's why I wanted to show that blathering idiot on today's show. Folks, that is it for us. Crazy busy week. I leave on Sunday for Atlanta. I'm playing in Warwick Dunn's scholarship golf tournament. Look forward to that. So I'll be live from Atlanta Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Next Thursday, I'll be live from Memphis. I'm speaking there on Thursday around noon. Then Friday, I'm live in Columbus, Ohio. Crazy busy week, but I hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Of course, if you want to contribute to our Bring the Funk fan club via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. This is it right here. The Stripe QR code right here. You can use it for credit cards as well. Checks and money orders. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Send to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Also, be sure to get our swag, our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, by going to rolandmartin.creator-spring.com. QR code there as well. Shop our black-owned businesses, blackstarnetwork.com. Black Star Network, shop blackstarnetwork.com, and so check those out there. And don't forget, you can check out our audio podcast on the iHeart Podcast Network. We're available on all platforms, and we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Our YouTube channel, we're closing in on 2 million subscribers, and so be sure to subscribe to that, and be sure to download the app Fanbase. Download the app on Android and Apple phone as well. And of course, if you want to invest, go to startengine.com/Fanbase. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow, right? See you on Monday. Have a great weekend right here. I'll see you on Monday. Roland Martin Unfiltered, Black Star Network, live in Atlanta. Holla!